So just over 2 years ago, I was living in a caravan with my newly ex-husband after we had sold our house and literally poured everything into our big dream, which was to travel Australia in a caravan, right? Only to get 1 year into the whole adventure and I decided this was my big dream and I don't want it anymore. So we separated, and honestly, I think it was the most stressful time of my life. As I said, we'd sold our house, we had poured everything into this big dream. I'd completely burned my business down as well. And I just honestly could not see a way out. I was like, I'm going to need to find myself a place. I need to obviously start my business up again. We have a child together. We need to make sure that we are very consciously separating so that we can protect her as much as possible as well. And it was around this time where I started to learn about the law of assumption, how we're creating our reality. I started to look at all of the stories, all of the thoughts and all of the beliefs. And I was like, I can see how I have played a part in creating this reality. And it was then that I decided to create a new one, to be consciously aware of what I'm thinking, of who I'm being, and of what I am assuming into my reality. So every night I would go to bed, living in the caravan, most nights next to my ex-husband, and I would play this 20-second movie in my head, and I would just keep replaying it. And the movie was my daughter and I opening the door handle to our new apartment, right? I knew where I wanted to live because I'd lived in the area before. So I just played this movie over and over again, but I had no idea how it was going to happen. Like, no idea. I was going to be a single mom, starting my business all over again. I burned everything to the ground. And back then, where I live, there was a rental crisis, right? So people were struggling to get rental. But I held my vision like it was my job. I kept replaying that movie over and over in my head. When we finally got back to Adelaide, I would drive to the area that I wanted to live in. I would drive there every couple of days and I would bring my daughter in the car sometimes. Sometimes I would just do it solo. And we would come to the place and I would walk around like I lived here. I would think like I lived here. I would move like I lived here. While I was doing that, I was still running that new movie. For about probably the next 6 months, I got up at 5 a.m. every single day to work on myself, to understand, really deeply understand the pieces of my self-concept and my identity, who I was being that had created the reality that I didn't want to live anymore. I worked so hard on changing pieces and those parts of me. So the time came where I was, all right, I'm ready to look for an apartment. I'm ready to go and have a look at some of the apartments in the area. First one I went to, there were probably about 30 other people, 30 groups of people looking at the same time. I walked in and I had a knowing. And I did a quick look around the apartment and I walked out and I said, how do I apply? Knowing that it was going to be mine, knowing that's exactly where I was going to live. So I applied for it, and a couple of days later, I got the phone call to say, you got the apartment. It's the apartment that I'm living in now, 18 months later, still. It's in the exact location that I wanted. My view is looking over the river. My view is looking over the city. And it's perfect. It's everything that I wanted. I assumed this into my reality. And of course, that's not the only thing that I've assumed into my reality. I've manifested helping hundreds of clients since restarting my business again. I've manifested the most incredible lifelong friends at the age of 40. At the age of 40, I have made my lifelong friends, right? And it's because I held these visions, right? Money as well, of course, unexpected money coming in, a trip to Bali that was completely paid for, and so much stuff, right? But this is what happens when you undo the parts, the identity and your self-concept that are keeping you stuck. You start to assume differently. You start to be differently. You start to show up, think and feel completely differently. There was a moment, 2.5 years ago where I wanted to give up. I didn't want to give up, but I didn't see another option. And I am so grateful that I found this work, that I really let myself immerse myself into the law of assumption, into understanding the role that I play in creating my own reality, because it completely changed my life. So all of that to say, this is not woo-woo. This is not magic. It's just the power of changing who you are being on the inside and knowing that your outside world has no choice but to change too. So come and join us in the Quantum Inner Circle membership, because we're assuming so much into reality right now. It's incredible.